Good evening and welcome. My name is Katherine Symthe. I am the owner and operator of the House of Savoy and writer and producer for the video podcast reality show OUTSpokenWYN. Forgive me on my eyes, I know they're a little red. It's been an emotional day for me, and I took it very personal. So, that's why these podcasts are here, and OUTSpokenWYN is here. It's about everyday life, everyday blessings, everyday challenges, the life we live. In the last episode, I spoke about metamorphosis and the journey that we are on. Part of our journey that we are on in this human form is the infamous F word. And no, not the rated R F word. I mean failure with a capital F. The infamous word that everybody doesn't like talking about. Something happens and you fail at it. And or perceive it to be a failure. All of us, you, me, the guy next door, the woman next door, have all had some type of failure in our life. And boom! It hits you like an atomic bomb, a nuclear bomb has gone off, and you're left devastated by the reality that it failed, it didn't come through, or it failed, and you're left with all these little ashes falling out of the air. And it's kind of like Sai Baba. He has this amazing talent for pulling ashes out of the air. He's very wow. But I call this failure fallout. You have a failure, you experience it, and you become emotional. This morning, I found out that I had failed an online assessment test for a potential job. And because of that failure, I would not be moving forward in the hiring process. The object was to complete all the questions and just not the 28 that I did in the 8 minutes that I had. And yeah, it was an intense online assessment. You know, in hindsight, I also realized that when I was taking the online assessment, that I was panicking during the online assessment and didn't even realize it. This is the first time I've told anybody, but I have dyslexia. That's where you see things backwards, and mine kicks in under extreme pressure, especially time tests involving mathematics or math formulas. I panic and I do the test results in reverse. I was diagnosed with this back when I was receiving my AA degree and I had failed algebra, and the instructor realized I had dyslexia. So they had counselors and coaches to teach me how not to be dyslexia and how to meditate and how to breathe during that time. All I was seeing was trying to get those answers in and do it right, and my mind just like flipped the answers. Either which way, the result was still the same. I failed the online assessment. And when I received the phone call this morning, I just went, what? Are you effing kidding me? I took a deep breath, and I thought, I freaking passed the bug test and the sales profit chart exam for this other company with no problem. And it was timed, even though it was 15 minutes compared to 8. But I was like, what? I have never, in my 22 years in the workforce, ever failed an online assessment test. And I took this hard. I broke down crying. I was like, what? I'm not stupid, I'm not dumb. And then the next thing I'm like, shit, How am I going to tell my friends that have been rooting for me? Oh my God, are you freaking kidding me? I called a friend who helped me focus because I had another interview for another company at 3 p.m. today. And now afterwards, which went better, I looked and examined this thing called failure. And I kept reflecting back on this morning. What is the freaking irony that I freaking fail an online assessment test? I'm an intelligent woman. I am a talented writer. I'm a shaman. And I fail an online assessment test for something that's very important. You'll understand the reason why I used that example of what I did when I talk later in the podcast. I began picking up a book called Spirit Driven Success. I haven't read this book in 2 years when I taught Failing Forward at an organization that I was a part of. And I realized the topic for the podcast for Outspoken Woman. It was Failure Fallout, Phoenix Rising. Did you know that every one of our written biblical heroes were prepared through challenges, conflicts, and trials and failures? You have Esther, you have David, you have Paul, you have Christ, you have Jonah. I love this particular scripture, 2 Corinthians 5:7. You must walk by faith and not by sight, and have faith of a mustard seed. See, the problem with failure is we see it as an end to something that we were trying to achieve. END. Take that END and make it something else. And I'll explain in just a minute. When we have the answer no given to us for something we were trying to achieve and fail, take that no and make it something else. Instead of saying the end of something, remember what END really stands for. Effort never dies. END. Effort never dies. What about no? Next opportunity. Failure has to occur to bring about the balance of success. Failure is that fire that takes that stone and molds it into a diamond. Take that failure and follow your authentic journey to take yourself to the highest mountain so you can fly. And then you will become the stone that flies and ripples into the waters of life. Failure is vibration. It's very unique because it rattles our emotional core and into the perception of ourself. You know, I'm done crying now, but earlier when I was releasing and letting it go, and yes, it is okay to cry because it shows that you're releasing that item. Letting go, not releasing. Very word important. So it still shows I'm in that emotional state where I'm still like, what? Because I'm not paying attention to my word usage. So I am right now to show you. I wasn't releasing, I was letting go of the fact that I failed this test and was passed up on an opportunity. I was embarrassed. I began doubting myself. I began thinking, I'm not stupid. I'm not this. I'm not this. What the frick? Those are echoes that have been taught by society, echoes of childhood, echoes of this. Because failure is seen as something that is deviant and dysfunctional. But it's not. It's only a perception of a self-identification. In the mix of it all, being human means you fail. And I tell you that if you have an event, a failed relationship, a failed job opportunity, I failed this, I failed that, and you think you have failed, or you have failed with a capital F, yeah, it burns into you like the scarlet letter. Brrr. And you get nervous, because it's like playing baseball. You have 2 fouls, 3 balls, or 4 balls, and 2 strikes. It's the bottom of the 9th, and you have to make the winning score to go home. And you got all your supporters behind you. And there is a reason why I have this froggy right here, because he reminded me of something so precious right before I did this podcast. However, the fear of failure stops people. Why? Because fear is a primal emotion. Because from it, it begets hatred. It begets fear of change. See, I guess he wanted to be on the podcast, so we're going to keep him right here. Well, we'll set him down right there. Wow, I can't believe that just really happened. But the point is, you cannot let fear stop you. You have to do it. Because it begets a greater purpose. Fear, when you embrace it, when you embrace failure, it tests your conviction to change. It brings you to a breaking point, and you begin to shatter that little cocoon that's around you, and you come out like a moth. Like that baby moth that is waiting to wait. And no, you're not Bug's Life. I know I keep saying that, but you break out of the cocoon and you become that monarch butterfly. So I was writing this podcast on paper like I always do, because I know with my dyslexia that when I get pressured, sometimes I might see things backwards or stutter. So I write down my podcast before going on air. You have to focus on the end goal of the object of your failure that you are trying to achieve. My object of this particular quest that I'm on is to find a greater and better job with great benefits, great income, and for the love of spirit that's in the great city of San Antonio. That is my end goal. Stop reminding yourself of past failures and use the failures that you have experienced as pearls of wisdom nuggets to move forward. Surrender yourself to the goal. What are you seeking? How does that look like? And what does that look like? Give you an example. I wrote down before I went into the interview at 3 p.m. that I am going to interview on the phone with Taka. I'm not going to say the real name. I'm just going to say Taka because it's with a company that's a sales manager position. So they talk a lot. Taka. I have the conviction that I am going to sell them who I am and what I can offer. The company being its sales base. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to develop a form of core report methodology with this recruiter and give them a conviction of why I am a valued asset to their company. My end goal is to be hired by this company and have that door of opportunity to leave my current job. I want to thrive, not survive. I'm not even barely surviving in the job I have. If it wasn't for my friends out there, my friends, my mentors, you all know who you are, I wouldn't be here right now doing this podcast. Do not be in a defensive mode when you are talking to a recruiter. Matter of fact, you should be in the offensive mode. You must be in the offensive mode because it is attainable and reachable. Matter of fact, you should be in the offensive mode all the time because you should be offended that you have to be defensive of who you are. That's just reality. How did the interview go at 3 o'clock? Well, I was told that I was a great communicator and that they were very impressed with what I had to say and that they will return their phone call within the week to find out if I'm going to move on to the next step to meet the territory manager. Let spirit, let go, let spirit. You know, the reality of the situation is, failure is that nasty little thing that comes along, takes your emotions, shakes it up like a little dice, and moves forward. Now, prior to me finishing this, I gotta tell you the importance of this little frog. People used to make fun of me all the time that I carried stuffed animals in a car. This guy was in the back of the car of my Dodge Neon when I was in a car accident, hit by a drunk driver. The guy hit me 2 times with this monster truck. He had a blood alcohol content level of greater than... They said he had enough alcohol to kill 2 elephants. And when he hit my car spun 5 times and flipped 3 times. On the 3rd flip, I jumped out of the vehicle because I didn't want to be impaled, so I was either be like a frog and squished on the road or impaled, and I chose to be squished. And I fell out of the car, jumped out of the car, and the rod went right through the engine into the driver's seat. When my friends came to the car that was squished, they couldn't believe I had survived. But the frog was there, so they took it out. If you look right here, where he's torn, a shard of glass from the rear of the car had impaled into him, along with the back here. Turns out that had he not been there, that glass would have gone into me. Interesting. Remember, life is great, and it's to be a celebration. Things happen, you don't know why. There's a reason for everything. There was a reason why I had my frog there, and my life was saved. Reason for a season for a reason. Failure. Failure is like a molding of fire. Failure requires you to dig deep inside of you and everything you got, to be willing to leave everything out there on the battlefield and say, yes, I am doing it. They are the stepping stones to success. You know the light, right? Sorry about that, it's a little tedious filming it yourself. The light that's above me and in the camera, light bulbs, that's a failure. Guess you didn't know that, did you? It took Thomas Edison 1,500 times to create his light bulb. That's a lot of times. Society teaches that failure is a deficiency of all the things that is wrong, that we think that is a deficiency. Of all the things we could be wrong in society today, that is number 1 on the list. Having a failure and experience a failure does not mean that you are deficient. Failure teaches you success. Matter of fact, major companies such as GM and these other companies teach you that. Sorry, there was a bug. That's a symbiology, that if you have a bug across you, that something was bugging you. Yeah, failure bugs the crap out of you. You want to just cry your eyes out or go, what? But fire molds you. Failure is a powerful tool to reaching your success. Those that you have experienced failure, we are considered the veterans of failure because we have life experiences, life stories to share with others. We are there with our helping hand and going, I've been where you have been, and I know what it feels like. Operating within your strength and outside of your comfort zone, that is the key. Failure teaches you to operate within your strength, the conviction of who you are, and to operate outside your comfort zone. Failure is not a validation, nor is it a test of your intelligence, your skill, or anything else in life. Like I said earlier, when I first got off the phone, I was like, what am I, stupid? No! That was just my emotional self reacting. We do that all the time. We immediately get negative on ourselves because we're hard on ourselves. We are our worst own critics. You know, Michael Jordan cried when they kicked him off the basketball team when he was in high school. He went home and practiced every day. What I can tell you is that every great work, every great accomplishment that has been brought into manifestation through holding on to a vision just before it becomes true, becomes a failure, and boom. It gets darkest before the light. That quote was actually from Florence Shine. So what is this emotional fallout, this failure, fallout, phoenix rising? Through the fallout of failure, become the phoenix that you are and rise up. And fly into the sky and soar into the greatness that you will become. There are companies today that will rather take an employee whose resume has had failures on it and some successes than somebody that's just been successful all their life. Because the ones that have had failures know what it's like to be in the trenches. Know what it's like to struggle. The greatest elders, the greatest teachers, the greatest people are those that have been through life experience. Failures of something. What is failure? That's perception too. Is it a failure that you didn't get something? Everything happens for a reason, and you will be put where you belong. Spirit will teach you that. God will teach you that. But along the way you will experience failure. It's part of life. It's a life rule. Because it molds you. So don't take failure as a letdown. Take it as a stepping stone to success. Thank you and namaste.